What's going on, everyone? So for a little over a month now, JJ Redick was the head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers, essentially, right? There's all the news, like people were coming out saying like Shams is like, hey, this is happening. Like everybody's like, hey, JJ is going to be the head coach. Even JJ's in an interview, he gets asked, and he's just kind of like, I'll address it after the NBA Finals, hint, hint, wink, wink. And it just was like, okay, it is so blatantly obvious. And then we got out of left field a Woj bomb of all Woj bombs. And hey, guess what? Dan Hurley is actually in the running and the job is his, essentially. And it was like, well, what's going to happen with JJ Redick? Like, what is going on with JJ? How come this guy wasn't even mentioned? This guy wasn't even talked about. Like, how did this happen? Well, turns out that, yes, Dan Hurley, he met with the Lakers on Friday to kind of go over like all the details and stuff and kind of have the vision painted to him of what they expect, what he expects. And there's talks about Dan Hurley getting somewhere in like the multiple years, like 5 to 8 and, 6-figure type, 9-figure type salary in the like 100 million range, which would be huge for him. Now there is a deal on the table with UConn as far as like him getting a pay increase, which would make him the third highest paid coach in college, not the first, but third highest paid coach in college. And so there is a lot of questions of like, is Dan Hurley actually going to take the job? Now, Dan Hurley is expected to kind of mull over. They had their meeting, and now they're going to kind of mull it over, take the time to kind of process it. I said it in the video the other day, or yesterday, where I was like, hey, he's going to probably take the weekend. We'll probably get our answer by like Monday or Tuesday. Because the Lakers want to move quick on this. The Lakers don't want to draw this out. They want to like, hey, take the job. Let's do this. Let's create this structure. Let's create this development program. Right? The idea with Dan Hurley is like we bring him in and he can kind of lay the foundation and framework with the new CBA of really developing, draft picks and young players and stuff. Something the Lakers have never really done. Right? The Lakers, they've always been about going and getting stars, and they're still going to do that. But you're going to need this with the new CBA. You're going to need this constant influx of young talent. You're going to have to constantly find these diamonds in the roughs and these young development guys. And Dan Hurley is considered one of the best in the game in that regard. Not just even at a college level. I mean, he's just perceived as like a guy that like he can turn your average player into a very good player, right? Like he's a guy that, as really... you look at the talent that UConn's got, which don't get me wrong, they have some good talent, but compared to some of these other programs, there's a real argument that Dan Hurley has greatly overachieved. And then just his philosophies on the offensive side of things, right? Now, there are questions of can he translate to an NBA level? Now, again, we've seen a lot of college coaches come in and try to do the NBA thing, and it failed miserably. Right? There's some that have had, a little success, but it's a real crapshoot, right? But he's a guy that's looked at as like he shouldn't have troubles with the transition because he is such a tactician. He is so good at just like the X's and O's and execution. He is so good at properly developing. He has like a real system and concepts and ideas rather than like, a coach, Calipari, right? When he came, it was kind of more him with the recruitment. There were a lot of questions of like, could he adjust to an NBA standard level? But it was like, oh man, he's going to be really good at just recruiting and getting players and whatnot. And it just didn't work out, right? But Dan Hurley is a guy that is looked at as like, he just has the total package, and most of his philosophies, most of his thought process, most of his schemes all are NBA level schemes. So he should have that natural transition. And then he's a guy that can really kind of be the face of the Lakers for the next 8 to 10 years. It's what the Lakers are looking for. It's also one of the reasons with JJ Redick, right? The Lakers like JJ Redick because he could be their head coach if it works for the next 10 to 20 years, right? So there is going to be this like interesting push-pull, but essentially it's Dan Hurley's job if he wants it. However, there is a lot of doubt that it's him, that he's going to want it for several reasons. Right now, they say it's about 50-50, but a lot of people are kind of saying like, and it makes sense that he might say no. Look, he has a history of turning down more money to stay put, right? So it's not about the money necessarily to him. He's even talked about that recently about how like, money's not a thing. Like I'm not worried about the money. I want a place that I can, grow and do the things that I'm best at doing, right? And the other thing is that he has an opportunity to do something that like hasn't happened in like 50 years or whatever, and three-peat as a NCAA head coach. And they have a very good team again this year. They are going to be the favorites again this year, and there's a real chance that he could do that. And it's not like if the Lakers job goes away, he won't have any other options later on down the road. Right? He very likely will still have opportunities to be a head coach elsewhere if he wants to make that jump. He also isn't sure he wants to make the jump yet. He's talked about how, eventually he does, but when he feels like he's ready and he's done all he could do in college, right? So, would you rather go and be the Lakers head coach, or would you rather be cemented as one of the greatest coaches in college and NCAA history and three-peat with the, UConn? It's just, it is a juggling question, which is why the reports are JJ Redick is still more likely than not going to be the head coach. More likely than not, JJ is going to end up landing and getting the job. And, I've talked about it. Like, there's a lot of rumors going around that, like, this is kind of a leverage play. Because from the Lakers standpoint, it's like, why did this get out now? Like, why go that route now? Right? Like, because apparently this has been talked about for like a month. So obviously everyone involved has already known about it. And now this gets leaked now? Like, why? And there's a lot of thought process that Dan Hurley is trying to get a bigger contract with UConn, that he wants more than what they're offering, that he wants to be the highest paid coach in NCAA. And by using the Lakers, it's like, hey, I can go to Lakers and I can go get this. I can go get this bag. Or you can keep me here. Let's go win this third national title, right? And then from the Lakers side of things, it's talked about that JJ wants a big bag to be the head coach, and the Lakers are reluctant to pay him a bunch of money because, again, if it doesn't work out, now you're kind of stuck. So they're kind of looking at it as like, dude, you're not even our first choice. Like, yeah, we'd love to have you, but, at the right price type thing. So there is a lot of talks about leverage. I still lean towards JJ Redick is going to end up being the head coach. Again, I'd love Dan Hurley. If we can get Dan Hurley, go get Dan Hurley, right? I'm fine with it. Let's get it. There's a lot that Dan Hurley would be walking away from to go be the head coach of the Lakers. And I don't know if it's something that he wants to do. Maybe it is. I mean, we're going to find out, right? I like JJ. If you're telling me worst case scenario, we land JJ Redick as our head coach, I'm okay with that. I think the Lakers are in a win-win situation, in my opinion. I think if you get Dan Hurley, beautiful, right? Let's go. Let's get it. Let's start competing. Another thing, too, you got to keep in mind with Dan Hurley is he likes to take his time in the process. So I know a lot of people look at Dan Hurley and go, man, he's the guy. Let's get him. It's going to take him a couple years to kind of implement what he wants to implement. It's not going to happen immediately. So something else to keep in mind. But I don't know. I think it's a win-win because you get Dan Hurley, beautiful. If you don't, you land JJ Redick, beautiful. I think it's good regardless for the Lakers. But JJ Redick seems to be still the top and most likely candidate in scenario. If you're in the camp of like, it has to be Dan Hurley, again, don't get your hopes up. Take it as anything else, right? Like, if it happens, great, but don't expect it. That way you're not disappointed. Because, again, all the reports are like, it's 50-50, and it seems kind of thin and not super likely, right? So, JJ, I believe, is, if Dan Hurley falls through, I think JJ's not 100%, but I think it's pretty close, right? So, to me, it's like, okay, would you rather take the bet on the guy that's, say, 90% or the guy that's like 50-50? I personally take the bet on the guy that's like 90%, right? But if Dan Hurley, it's Dan Hurley's job to lose is what it boils down to. It's up to him. If he wants it, it's his. If he doesn't, it's not. And, again, I kind of weigh the pros and the cons, and I kind of lean towards like, I can understand why Dan Hurley might not want this job. But we'll see. Time will tell. Like I said, I'm sure we're going to get our answer pretty quickly. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. I pass a question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Are you okay with JJ? Right? Like, if Dan Hurley falls through, do you think like, yeah, JJ, get him. You're good. Do you think it's kind of a win-win situation for the Lakers? Because it's like, if the Lakers don't get Dan Hurley, then you get JJ, you're good. If they do get Dan Hurley, then you're good, right? No matter how you shape it, Lakers are in good shape. Do you think it makes sense that JJ would still be the top and most likely candidate? Or do you kind of lean towards like, no, like it's got to be Dan Hurley? Again, how you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. It's me enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. If you're not subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.